Vesta Williams, the powerhouse vocalist with a 4-octave range who gave the world unforgettable hits, seemed destined for greatness. Yet, behind the spotlight, her journey was far more complicated. As her melodies lit up the airwaves and her name became synonymous with vocal brilliance, whispers of personal struggles, controversies, and heartbreaking battles with addiction began to shadow her career. Her sudden and unexpected passing left fans stunned and questions unanswered. What truly happened in her final days? And how did fame, pressure, and hidden pain shape her tragic fate? Today, we uncover the untold story of Vesta Williams's last chapter. Vesta Williams was born on December 1, 1957, in Coshocton, Ohio, a small-town girl with a voice that was destined to echo far beyond its borders. From an early age, music was her constant companion, filling her home, her church, and soon, her dreams. Her first stage was the church choir, where her powerful voice quickly stood out among the hymns. But while gospel gave her foundation, it was the rich blend of R&B, jazz, and blues that truly spoke to her soul. Inspired by icons like Aretha Franklin, Chaka Khan, and Patti LaBelle, young Vesta envisioned a life under the spotlight. Her songs carried across airwaves into homes around the world. That dream, however, didn't come easy. Before her name was linked to music charts, she first tested the waters of Hollywood. Moving to Los Angeles in her late teens, she found work as an actress, taking on small roles in television and film. But acting never truly satisfied her. The recording studio was where she felt alive. By the early 1980s, Vesta had thrown herself into the city's thriving music scene. Night after night, she performed in local clubs, sharpening her skills and captivating audiences with her soaring 4-octave range and undeniable charisma. Her reputation grew quickly, and it was only a matter of time before the industry took notice. That moment came when a record executive happened to catch one of her performances. Struck by her raw talent and magnetic presence, he signed her to A&M Records. For Vesta, it was the long-awaited break, the first step toward the stardom she had always imagined. In 1986, Vesta Williams stepped into the spotlight with her debut album, Vesta. The record struck a chord with audiences, instantly showcasing her gift for both power and vulnerability. Tracks like Once Bitten Twice. Shy highlighted her storytelling flair, while Don't Blow a Good Thing became an anthem for many. Just 2 years later, her follow-up album, Vesta For You, solidified her place as an R&B powerhouse. With the tender Sweet Sweet Love and the unforgettable ballad Congratulations, she delivered more than music. She offered pieces of herself. Every lyric, every note carried the weight of lived experience, and fans felt it deeply. By the late 1980s, Vesta was a fixture on the charts and a force on stage. Her concerts drew packed crowds, her voice soared across radio waves, and collaborations with some of the industry's finest elevated her even further. Critics marveled at her range, moving effortlessly from gentle whispers to thunderous crescendos that could shake an audience to its core. But behind the success, the demands of fame began to creep in. The pressure to perform, the expectations of fans, and the scrutiny of the industry weighed heavily. Still, in those years, her passion burned brightly, and her star showed no signs of dimming. To her fans, Vesta was never just a singer. She was proof of what talent, resilience, and heart could achieve. As the 1980s drew to a close, the world seemed to be hers for the taking. What no one could foresee were the challenges and detours that lay ahead. The 1990s ushered in a new era in music. Genres were blending, technology was reshaping production, and audiences were becoming more demanding. For artists, the pressure to evolve and to stay relevant was heavier than ever. Vesta, still glowing from the success of the previous decade, wasn't immune to these changes. Each album, each performance, was measured against the last. For a singer celebrated for her originality and unmatched vocal range, this was both a blessing and a curse. The bar had been set sky high, and the fear of falling short was always present. In 1991, she released her third album, Special, a bold attempt to rise to the challenge. The record showcased her versatility. Tracks like Do Ya leaned into the fresh, contemporary sound of New Jack Swing, while the title track Special stayed true to her soulful roots. Critics praised the album, but it also underscored how quickly the industry was shifting around her. Behind the applause, however, Vesta was fighting battles invisible to the public eye. The endless cycle of touring, studio sessions, and media appearances began to wear her down. And then there were the pressures that came not from music, but from image. Her weight had long been a subject of gossip and quiet criticism. Comments, often disguised as concern or advice, carried a clear message. Her body, as it was, didn't fit the industry's unforgiving standards. For Vesta, the stage lights were dazzling, but the shadows they cast grew darker with time. The external pressures of fame, combined with Vesta's own inner battles, began to take a toll. In an effort to meet impossible standards, she turned to extreme diets, resulting in drastic weight fluctuations that fans and critics alike often noticed and commented on. It wasn't just her body that suffered. The emotional burden was even heavier. The rumors, the speculation, and the constant lack of privacy pushed her to seek temporary escapes. While she kept many of her personal struggles private, close friends and family later revealed her battles with substance abuse. Ironically, the very industry that had given her a stage and a voice was also eroding her well-being. Her music during this time reflected much of what she was feeling. The lyrics often spoke of love, loss, and longing, hints of her search for real connection in a world that sometimes felt shallow. Songs like How You Feel and I'll Be Good to You revealed a raw vulnerability that resonated deeply with her fans. By the mid-1990s, the pressure to reinvent herself and stay relevant in a rapidly changing industry was undeniable. In 1993, she released her fourth album, Everything and More. It blended contemporary R&B with touches of hip-hop, a noticeable departure from her earlier style. Tracks like Always stayed true to her soulful roots, while Searchin' explored new directions. The album found success, but it also sparked conversations about the new Vesta and where she belonged in an evolving music landscape. Beyond the studio and the stage, she sought stability wherever she could. She dabbled in acting, appearing in movies and television shows. These roles, though not as celebrated as her music, offered her brief moments of escape, a chance to step outside the pressures of being Vesta Williams, the star. Yet, no matter the challenges, her dedication to her craft never wavered. She continued to write, tour, and perform, electrifying audiences with her powerful voice. Every concert, whether filled with her classic hits or new tracks, was a reminder of her unmatched talent. Still, as the decade came to a close, it was clear that she stood at a crossroads. The industry was shifting beneath her feet, and her personal battles were mounting. What once seemed like a clear, promising path forward now appeared uncertain, demanding resilience, introspection, and a renewed sense of purpose to navigate. Hollywood has long been described as the place where dreams are made. But for many artists, including Vesta Williams, it was also where vulnerabilities were laid bare, magnified, and at times exploited. As her name grew synonymous with chart-topping hits and soulful performances, Vesta found herself in a world that was as mesmerizing as it was menacing. Her life in the spotlight was defined by a constant duality. On one hand, she experienced genuine moments of friendship and camaraderie. She collaborated with some of the industry's biggest names, building bonds through the shared highs and lows of fame. Icons like Chaka Khan and Gladys Knight were more than colleagues. They became confidants, offering her comfort and stability in the midst of chaos. Yet behind the glitz, the shadows of stardom loomed. Hollywood's relentless scrutiny, especially toward women, was unkind. For Vesta, everything from her weight to her relationships, even her creative choices, became easy targets for gossip columns and tabloids. Every decision she made, whether personal or professional, was dissected, often without her consent or context. Her career also unfolded during a time when the entertainment landscape was shifting. By the late 1990s and early 2000s, the lines between music, television, and film were blurring. While this opened new doors for artists to branch out, it also brought an intensified spotlight. Vesta embraced acting as a creative outlet, but the roles available to African-American women were often limited and riddled with stereotypes. The pressure to conform to those molds weighed heavily on her. Meanwhile, her personal life was under just as much strain. Relationships, constantly scrutinized by the public eye, left scars. The boundaries between Vesta the artist and Vesta the woman grew increasingly blurred, complicating her efforts to find peace and stability away from the stage. Though her music often hinted at the struggles she carried, stories of love, loss, and resilience, the deeper truths and emotions behind those lyrics remained largely hidden from the public. For Vesta, comfort often came through the company of fellow artists who understood the unique pressures of fame. Late-night jam sessions, impromptu collaborations, and quiet moments of reflection revealed a more intimate side of her world. One of the most significant bonds she shared was with Whitney Houston. Both women faced their own battles, and in each other, they found understanding. The triumphs of sold-out shows and the crushing weight of personal struggles tied them together in ways that transcended their professional lives. Still, the expectation to maintain a flawless facade never let up. By the early 2000s, the allure of Hollywood had begun to fade for Vesta. The industry was evolving rapidly, with new artists rising and the digital age transforming how fame was experienced. The rise of social media blurred the lines between public and private life, leaving little room for retreat. In response, Vesta began to pull back. The spotlight that once thrilled her now felt overwhelming. She turned instead towards smaller, more personal projects, collaborations and performances that spoke less to commercial success and more to her soul. Though she performed less frequently when she did take the stage, there was an honesty and vulnerability in her voice that resonated deeply with her loyal fans. This was also a period of self-reflection. Friends recalled her desire to reconnect with herself, to find balance between Vesta Williams the star and Vesta Williams the woman. She sought solitude in trips away from the spotlight, moments where she could simply breathe and heal. Yet the music industry is rarely forgiving. Even as she tried to rebuild, the shadows of her past lingered, years of personal battles that never truly disappeared. Still, through it all, her resilience endured. She continued to pour her pain, her joy, and her truth into her art, ensuring that every note carried the weight of her journey. Vesta's music was more than entertainment. It was a reflection of her growth as both an artist and a woman. Her sound matured alongside the shifting landscape of R&B and soul, each new song carrying traces of her personal journey as well as the changing times. By the late 1980s, R&B itself was transforming. Traditional soul was merging with pop, funk, and even the early waves of hip-hop. Producers and artists alike were eager to push boundaries, and Vesta was right there at the forefront, blending these new styles with ease. Her debut album Vesta in 1986 stayed close to classic R&B roots, but her later work revealed a bolder range. On Vesta For You in 1989, tracks like Special showcased her ability to fuse pop-driven melodies with soulful harmonies, proving she could adapt while never losing her essence. Songs such as Congratulations and Sweet, Sweet Love struck that delicate balance, contemporary in sound, but timeless in emotion. Part of this evolution came from industry pressures. The late 80s and early 90s saw the rise of artists like Janet Jackson, TLC, and Boyz II Men who were reshaping the sound of R&B. Record labels pushed for modern, radio-friendly hits. But for Vesta, adapting wasn't just about commercial success. It was about exploration. She welcomed new sounds as opportunities to grow, not compromises to her identity. Her lyrics, too, began to shift. While her earlier work often centered on love and heartbreak, her later songs revealed deeper layers, stories of resilience, longing, and self-discovery. They became mirrors of her own struggles and triumphs, resonating with listeners who heard their own lives in her words. The 1990s also brought new collaborations. Working with a range of producers and fellow musicians, Vesta expanded her creative toolkit, experimenting with styles she hadn't touched before and refining her songwriting craft. With the rise of digital production, she embraced modern tools like synthesizers and drum machines while still preserving the warmth and soul of classic R&B. Her evolution wasn't without criticism. Purists sometimes accused her of straying too far from her roots, but Vesta remained steadfast. For her, music wasn't about standing still. It was about growth. Her sound wasn't a departure from who she was, it was an extension of it. Each album, each performance, was proof of an artist who refused to be confined, choosing instead to evolve on her own terms. An artist's career is shaped by more than just talent. Time, changing trends, and personal choices often define the direction of their journey. And for Vesta Williams, her later years reflected all of these challenges. Never one to shy away from adversity, Vesta continued to push forward as the music industry evolved. She experimented with blending her classic soul sound with contemporary styles, hoping to reconnect with a wider audience. While these projects didn't always reach the same commercial heights as her earlier hits, they proved her dedication to growth and her refusal to be left behind. Through the 2000s, she found a new rhythm performing in smaller venues, jazz clubs, and intimate spaces. These shows revealed another side of Vesta, the storyteller. She often paused between songs to share personal anecdotes, drawing audiences closer not just with her voice, but with her honesty and warmth. Outside of music, she explored other avenues. At one point, there was talk of an autobiography, a candid look at her life and struggles. Though it was never published, the idea itself showed her willingness to share her truth. In her personal life, she sought healthier ways to heal, involving herself in support groups and confronting past battles with substance abuse. These efforts reflected a woman determined to find peace and redemption. As the years went on, Vesta kept pressing forward. By the fall of 2011, she was back in the studio working on new music, determined to keep creating. During that time, she was staying at the Homestead Suites Hotel in El Segundo, just outside Los Angeles, while her home was being renovated. On September 17th, she took the stage at the Autumn Jazz Explosion in Portsmouth, Virginia. It would turn out to be her final performance. In a moving rendition of her classic hit Congratulations, Vesta paused to thank her Lord Jesus Christ, sharing her unshakable faith in the Heavenly Father's presence in her life. Just days later, on September 22nd, tragedy struck. Around 6 p.m., law enforcement responded to a call from the Homestead Suites. When they entered her room, they found Vesta lying lifeless in her bed. Pill bottles scattered around the room led authorities to initially suspect an overdose. But months later, medical reports revealed the truth. Her death was caused not by drugs, but by complications of an enlarged heart. She had passed away in her sleep at just 53 years old, with no drugs in her system. Even in the face of her struggles, Vesta never lost sight of her dreams. She often spoke of wanting a future like Ella Fitzgerald's, recalling seeing Ella perform in her 80s, frail yet still singing with unmatched power. Vesta longed to be that woman, still commanding a stage late in life, still doing what she loved. On October 4th, 2011, family, friends, and fans gathered to say their final goodbyes to the singer who had touched so many. Vesta Williams's journey through music was defined by her extraordinary 4-octave range, her tireless passion, and her resilience in the face of life's challenges. From her earliest days singing in basements to her rise as an R&B powerhouse, she left behind a legacy of strength, faith, and unforgettable music. The life of Vesta Williams was about far more than hit singles and sold-out concerts. Behind the glamour of the stage was a woman with dreams, struggles, and vulnerabilities. Someone as complex and human as the songs she sang. Though much of her personal life remained private, one thing was clear: her family meant everything to her. Her parents and siblings were her anchor, offering strength during difficult times and celebrating her triumphs with unwavering support. They kept her grounded, reminding her of the world beyond the spotlight. In an industry obsessed with appearance, Vesta's journey with body image made her stand out. Her struggles with weight were public, but so was her resilience. She spoke openly about her challenges, both in interviews and in her music, and in doing so became a source of inspiration for fans who saw themselves in her. Without trying, she became a symbol of body positivity, proof that talent, heart, and authenticity mattered more than fitting an industry mold. Beyond music, Vesta cared deeply about using her voice for good. She lent her support to causes close to her heart, particularly those involving mental health and substance abuse. Having faced these battles herself, she felt a responsibility to help others find strength and hope through their own struggles. Vesta Williams was more than a powerhouse vocalist. She was a force of nature. Her life story, with all its highs and lows, offered a glimpse into the realities of fame and the humanity that often lies hidden behind it. To truly appreciate her legacy, one has to look beyond the music. Her journey was one of passion, resilience, and authenticity. She never conformed to the industry's demands, but instead embraced her true self, flaws and all. That honesty made her not only relatable, but also unforgettable. Her openness turned her into an advocate, whether she intended it or not, and her courage helped countless others feel less alone.